Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today I will be speaking about a few of my favorite books. I do have an extant book collection, so it is impossible to mention them all in one video alone. But in this one I will be mentioning the ones that I like the most at the moment. So I will be reading a few phrases from the book, a few of my opinions, and also why I read those books. And so we can start now. So the first book that I'm going to mention is the book called The Courage to be Happy. This book is the second part of one of my favorite books ever. It's a book that changed my life, and I will mention it first because I will mention the second part first because this one was a turning point, while the other gave me a bit more, positivity and happiness. On the contrary, from this one it does say that it should be the courage to be happy. But when I read this, I was a bit disappointed with everything and, well, the way, we live our life. So this is from Ichiro, Kishimi and Fumitake, Koga. So both of those books are written by these authors. And they are both Japanese. So I was introduced to these books by a comment from one of the K-pop artists that I listen to. So there are a few K-pop groups that I like, and one of them has mentioned in the interview that the first book from this series was his favorite book, and I wanted, just to check it. And yes, after checking it, I was curious what it was about. Actually, just the name, you will see. It's tempting to buy the book and, yes, just read it and understand why. But anyway, this is a self-help book. This is based on Adler's psychology or individual psychology, how it is called as well. And yes, so it helps to understand why we act the way we act, and just simple things in our behavior, and also a few things about our relationships and energy flow, all of that. And the phrase that I wanted to read from this book was the phrase that disappointed me the most. This was the phrase that broke me apart for a few weeks. So the phrase is, I will read just a few lines. Nothing will change by having waited. Yes, so nothing will change by having waited. So this phrase is something that was a breaking point, and basically nothing will change in life if you waited for, if you want something, you need to just go for it and not to wait that maybe something better will come along. So this is the courage to be. So the next book that I have here is the one that I find my favorite, and it's The Courage to Be Disliked. So we have the courage to be disliked, and then the second part, the courage to be happy. And the courage to be disliked, I will say that I have read a lot of books about philosophy and psychology that will be included in this video because those books are my favorite. But this book is a whole other world. As I mentioned, this is about Adler's individual psychology, and it does indicate that everything that we do and every process, our energy, our problems, relationships and all of that is dependent on us and not and not anything else, basically. So this book is not an easy read, because basically he indicates that even if you go through a very difficult situation, even if everyone and everything around you is against, your perception of that reality and the way that you choose to step forward is on you and you alone. And it is a difficult read because he makes a comparison here in one situation that the person who is depressed for a reason that is hers alone. And it means that they keep that depression around just because it is convenient for them, for any reason whatsoever. And I think that it is heavy to understand that, for instance, even with bigger traumas, if you survive something, something violent or something very, very awful, and then you need to leave with that, and you cannot just move forward, or you need a lot of help for that, and you start to blame the world, and people who have included you or dragged you into that situation and caused that to happen. But yes, really, this book, at the beginning, it is difficult to read, but then you can understand that really is just your choice. You can be sad if you want to be sad, but then please do understand that that sadness is on you and you alone, because the world doesn't own you, doesn't owe you a thing. It could be compared like you are holding a rock, and while you are holding it, you are exercising pressure on it, and you can hold it in whichever hand, or place it on your shoulder or your legs, anything like that. But then you decide to throw the rock, and you can decide the direction as well. But once the rock is out of your hand, it really isn't up to you where it's going to land, how it's going to land. if the rock is going to break. So yes, anything that is up to you is up to you, and anything else is out of our control, so therefore out of our strength to change. And this was what this book speaks about, and obviously many more things, but yes, that's the main line. So The Courage to Be This Light is a book that speaks about many aspects, but the part that I wanted to read is about inferiority complex. So it is, further, you harbor an inferiority complex about education and think, I'm not well educated, so I cannot succeed. Put it the other way around and the reasoning can be, if only I were well educated, I could be really successful. So you can see that the phrasing here is very close, but what this wants to say is that sometimes we can create an inferiority complex due to a part that really has no place to be, basically. So we can blame our parents that have not provided us with a better education, that have not given us a better place to go or taken us there, or have not paid more for our education. But it's not really about that. It really is because we feel like we are missing something in our life, and that something depends on the education, or we want to be more successful, but we are not able or do not have energy to change that aspect. So inferiority complex is one of the things that this book speaks about, and it really provides few answers that you can understand how to implement into your life, and know that the change does come from your side, from your effort, from the energy that you invest in what you want and what you want to have in the future, and how you see yourself and accept yourself and others, of course, around you. So this is Courage to Be This Light. I highly recommend this. This is my favorite book, and I can't stop just sharing it with my friends, and again just changing their lives too. So the next book that I have here is another very positive, in my opinion, book, and it is The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alain. I have spoken about Alan Watts in a few of my videos already, and I know that he has quite a bit of recognition, but I definitely think that, or I would like that people gave him a bit more attention. So this book, again, speaks about just self-improvement and the reasoning that we can use to or how to understand the life around us, and many other things as well. But the main thing I would say about this book is that it is so very positive. And I've said this already, but I will say it again and again. Alan Watts, and at least anything that I read from him, is a very positive human being. If you feel, you know, a bit low, or you need a break in life, or you're feeling stressed, I would definitely recommend to read one of his books, you know, maybe starting with Wisdom of Insecurity. There are a few videos of him speaking in lectures that he had in the university. And he sounds and looks like a very gentle human being, so I definitely recommend that. And the phrase that I wanted to read is one of the first ones from the book, and it is from the part of Age of Anxiety. By all outward appearances, our life is a spark of life between one eternal darkness and another. Nor is the interval between these two nights an unclouded day, nor the more we are able to feel pleasure, the more we are vulnerable to pain. And whether in background or foreground, the pain is always with us. So I know this phrase is not very positive, but it does help to understand how people feel about the presence of life, and as it says, it feels like it is in just a moment between two darkness and between two unknowns, because we really don't know what happens to us before we are born, and we don't know what happens to us when we are gone. I would say that this book does speak about few religious aspects. After all, Alain was a theology professor, and he did study quite a bit of different religions throughout the world. Especially he focuses on the Buddhism, and yes, but nonetheless, I don't think that someone who is an atheist or anything like that would find this book unpleasant to read. So this is the Wisdom of Insecurity by Alain. So the next book that I have here is The Consolation of Philosophy by Alain. It's a fancy looking book. Yes, so this book was introduced to me by one of the colleagues at work. She mentioned that she was into philosophy and that she liked this book very much. And well, of course, given that I am also into that type of topic, I went and bought it immediately. So this book definitely is about philosophy. It does speak about different type of philosophers and what they preached. They taught us about different things, and this book justifies through their sayings the problems that we have and how they can be solved as well. So the small introduction about every type of, well, maybe not every type, but most types of philosophies, and how they came to be born. So all of that is described here, plus the part where it says how we can do this all together. So the phrase that I wanted to read here is dedicated to Seneca, which I'm sure you already know. And I just wanted to read a part that would be about the Seneca Dictionary of Frustration. Though the terrain of frustration may be vast, from a stabbed toe to an untimely death, at the heart of every frustration lies a basic structure, the collision of a wish with an unyielding reality. The collision begins in earliest infancy with the discovery that the sources of our dissatisfaction lie beyond our control and that the world does not reliably conform to our desires. And yet for Seneca, in so far as we can ever attain wisdom, it is by learning not to aggravate the world's obstinacy through our own responses, through spasms of rage, self-pity, anxiety, bitterness, self-righteousness, and paranoia. So our task here is to prepare ourselves for our wishes will not be granted. So this is one of the parts that the book presents, and of course it does speak about Seneca and his ideologies. But yes, definitely something that can be included in one's read if you are, if even you are learning about philosophy and need a bit more information. I would definitely recommend it. So this one was The Consolation of Philosophies. So the next book that I have here is another one related to the theme that we are seeing throughout the video. It's yet another psychology book, and it is called Meeting the Shadow. It does have a lot of authors included, but it is edited by Connie Zweig and Jeremiah Abrams. So you can see the list of many authors that were included in this book. One of them is Carl Jung. I do appreciate his psychology a bit more than, the classic Freud. But I wanted to read this book because I read about the shadow. And if you don't know, the shadow is the hidden part of our unconscious self. It goes against our ego, and that's why it is so hard to fight. But at some point in life, we may realize that our egos are not the best that we can have for ourselves. But anyhow, the shadow is something that is always present, and it is the part that we detest about ourselves. A good way to find what our shadow is to question yourself, what you hate about other people when you see them behave in a certain way. So for instance, if you don't like that someone is too touchy, or that someone is too loud, And I'm not saying that you just, slightly not like because someone is bothering you by being loud. It is something that you hate, that it immediately triggers something in you that you don't like. Most probably it is part of your shadow and you are denying that you are just as loud and living with that whole pressure of it being something that you or your ego is not allowing you to have. But the part that I wanted to read is a comment from a book, from this book. And it is, we spend our life until we are 20 in something, deciding what parts of ourselves to put in the bag. And we spend the rest of our lives trying to get it out. So, this is by Robert Bly. And the other phrase is, darkness, call me brother, that I may not fear which I seek. So I read this book because people speak about midlife crisis, and I wanted to meet my shadow, or at least, try to guess or figure out what it is. So if I cannot release it, at least I can know what it is, and maybe gradually introduce it into my reality, conscious reality, of course. Because ego is a strong thing, and we live with it our all lives. It's not something that we can move away. But darkness is a constant present in our lives as well. And our shadow, even though is not conscious, but it's always ruling over us. So yes, this is why I wanted to meet my shadow. And that's why I use this book. So here we have our last book for today. And for a change, it's a romance. So here we have A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. So I decided to include this book, and it is indeed one of my favorite books, at least in 2 last years. Because you may have seen throughout the video, the theme was about philosophy and psychology. And though those books are complex, at times they can help you a lot, but at the same time, when I read a lot of philosophy and psychology, at times I start to feel like cold as a brick. It makes me feel like life is not something practical at all. It's something theoretical that you could read about, and it really doesn't happen outside, And when I read a lot of philosophy and psychology, even though it's supposed to be about human and behavior and our life and everything related to that, for me it makes me feel like that. So I use this book as a break from philosophy and psychology and everything else. And I just wanted to read something about human life, something human, something mediocre, And even though this is a great book, I found it to be exactly that. I found it to be something human, something about life. And And yes, I highly recommend this. It includes few things that are less positive, but even so, the overall feel is okay. And the phrase that I wanted to mention, read a little bit, is this one from chapter 13. We got into Milan early in the morning, and they unfolded us in the freight yard. An ambulance took me to the American hospital. Riding in the ambulance on a stretcher, I could not tell that part of the town we were passing through, but then when they unloaded the stretcher, I saw the marketplace and an open wine shop with the girl sweeping out. It smells like an early morning. So I like this book because it had a description about the situation that the main character was going through. And it really does sound like something humane and well, it doesn't really make you feel like you are there, but like someone is telling their story. So this is exactly how this books feel like. And that's why I liked it so much. It did work quite well overall for the break that I wanted to take from all philosophy and psychology books. And if you, even if you don't like Hemingway and other books that he has written, I definitely think that this one is worth to read. In any way, if you want to take a break for anything too complicated, or if you like romances and books that mention just simple life. So this is A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. So those were all books that I wanted to mention today. Again, those are not all books that I have in my collection, but I wanted to mention just a few that I give a bit more importance to. So thank you so much for staying here and watching the video. Hope you could relax and at least get a few suggestions. And I hope you are doing well, and as always, wish you all the best. Thanks again.